day and night.
G'day everyone, Matt Elder Family Bricks here, and today we're going to look at adding this Briksmax LED lighting kit into this Dagobah Jedi training Star Wars Lego set 75330.
We will unbox the light kit and see what's included. From there we'll have a time-lapse speed build of starting to break the set down so we can add the lights in. We'll make some comments on adding the lights and building the set back up. We'll look at how the set looks all lit up. We will show what the finished wiring setup looks like, critique the kit, give our overall impressions and the experience of adding lights to this Lego set. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to be notified when we upload videos. It greatly helps the channel out. This video is brought to you by McCatsim Holiday Homes in Margate and Broadstairs. Great for a week's holiday or a weekend escape, being just over an hour east of London, UK. Treat yourself to amazing sunsets, a Lego wall, or great food. Visit www.mccatsim.com and mention this YouTube video and we'll look after you. So here is the Briksmax Lighting LED Kit, which I purchased for the Dagobah Jedi training set 75330. Nice shrink wrap, just sort of general information, a little picture of the set there. Let's crack it open. So this is what we've ended up with. Looks like a numerous number of lights. So we've got some 30cm warm, 15cm warm, adhesive, flashing modular board, dot lights, 10cm yellow dot light, warm strip light, a port extension, 5cm cables, some 15cm connecting cables, a battery box with studs on the top, user guide, customer service, and I guess the instruction manual. So this was everything that was in the box, just laid out a little bit nicer. So you can see you got some A's, some B's, D's and F's, battery box. So just looking at the instructions per se, it's more in this style of being a little bit brief about what you're doing. It doesn't appear to be, every single little tiny step that you need to do. So this could get a little bit interesting. We'll see how it all sort of gets on, but it gives you a bit of a flavor, just sort of going through each bit that you need to take apart, how you're attaching them, and then I guess putting it back together as such. I'm seeing the number of bags. There's a fair number of lights and everything here. You get a bit of a sense around the back what's happening with all the wires going in different ways. And then how it all comes together underneath. And sort of more just where you're threading all the different wires, and then how they come together and get plugged into the battery box. And of course the obligatory other products that we can light up. The user guide is more multilingual, and for the English part it's mainly just saying, don't put your wires between studs and crush them, and just how to actually go through and connect up the individual units just in general. And then we get into the different languages. And the customer service sort of pamphlet isn't too much. It's more just the usual. If you're happy, make sure you tell everyone about it, and if you're unhappy, come and talk to us first. And then just different languages, and thank you at the end. The one thing I would say, however, is while you can get all the parts in there tightly packed and everything, the instruction manual, the main thing you're looking at, is obviously bigger than that. So it's been sitting there curled up, and even though I've been trying to anti-roll it and curl it, it is a little bit annoying trying to flick through and look at the instructions and things. So I think that's going to need to be put under some heavy books or something for a night, just to try to really get that to be nice and flat and a little bit more usable, and sort of see it's bowing up. So in this case, I might just take my little Lego house minifig tribute and have him sit on it for a night. There we go, something useful. The one thing which I would say is not included, which is always really handy, is a pair of tweezers. These are ones which I've had from elsewhere, but when you're trying to guide little fine wires and things like that, if you've got big fat chubby fingers, or even if you don't, always very handy to have a pair of tweezers around.
We'll now go through and just do a quick time-lapse overview of how all these light kits come together. And you start off by taking apart, the main part of the tree in the background and putting in some of the wires. As you can see there, that's a little flickering control mechanism. Now we're starting to put some of the lights into the actual individual tree elements and wrapping them around and through. This whole process took about an hour and a half over a couple of sessions, and really just going through it slowly and making sure you're getting it right and not trying to rush it. And some of the little connections are really quite fine and tiny. Once you've got a number of the wires in place, you then start actually wrapping them together and turning them around, which then cleans it up a little bit, but it certainly doesn't look like the way that the instructions do it. So I don't know if you did something wrong or the instructions are a little bit more ideal. Here you're taking elements of the base apart, which then starts weakening it as you're trying to put these wires through, and it feels like it's floating, so you're up and down pushing it all together. And it always felt a little bit precarious the way that you're holding it and trying not to snap pieces off. Now just trying to put the individual lights into this board, and although it only goes one way, it is very finicky, and you're always trying to balance using enough force to get it in there without breaking it. So there we have it all wired up. Moment of truth, turn all the lights off and see if it works. That's cool. So first time I've seen it on, and it all looks really good, lovely and nice and lit up. That's the only thing sometimes with doing these, is that you're waiting right till the end and hoping that you've got all the connections and everything in there. And I'm just getting a little bit of flare and blowout from that. Just drop that down a little bit. But you got some nice lights here from the X-Wing, sort of with that sort of sunken in there a bit. The lantern here pulsating, the light from inside the hut, and then some nice lights here in the tree just to give it that downward pointing light effect, just as we move that around a little bit, just so we can see what it looks like all the way around the model. It's great the way the lights are casting the shadows and focusing. And then I guess all the real lurky bits back here, all the wires and cables. And that light from the hut in there, I think it had about 4 little lamps on it. And we just continue spinning it around just to see what it looks like in the 360 as we come back around to the front here, with Yoda surveying his surrounds. Oh, very cool. So let's get in and have a little bit of a look at some of the wires and some of the detailing. Most of it you can't see from the front because it's nice and hidden in all the different places. And I guess the way that these dioramas are is that there is a nice sort of back wall with these trees and mango type swamp type ideas. But if we spin it around, you can start to see how all this is achieved. And sort of see a lot of the wires there. To give them credit, they've really thought about how to get the lights and the wires from all the different elements and try to hide them as much as possible. And then you can kind of see on the backside there how all the wires are all coming together. And it's quite clever in the instructions, the way that they sort of suggest that you start wrapping around some of these wires here so that you can get it all a lot cleaner without just having, lots of frayed wires and things back here. Of course, the instructions make this look so much easier to get all together. If there was one criticism I'd have of it, you got these wires which are black and white. The white really stands out too much. I think if all the wires were black, that would really sit back, because your eye really does pick up on it and see it probably doesn't come up all that well on camera as much as what it is in real life. And particularly when you look at some of the other ways that they achieve it, like here, because you got the white wire, you can kind of see it even there. But it's really clever with some of these ones here, how they get it to run to the border and down and under pretty quick. And for these lamps and things here, there's no real way to hide it, and the white just stands out so much with it. But with the lights and the leaf pieces, there's really well done, because then it's generally sort of comes up and under and disappears into the underside of the leaf. The only other thing would then be this battery box. I guess maybe somehow if you got some brackets or something, you might be able to build a little something out here. Doesn't quite really fit in there, so that's the only thing. If you were displaying it on like a shelf, because of the thickness of that battery box there, it might jut out a little bit. You'd have to have a think about how to do it. I mean, it's a standard USB plug, so you might be able to find a way to run that through a 9-volt connection or make it smaller. But they do have the studs there, top and bottom, so there might be other sort of more Lego type solutions and building something for it, or even the cord's long enough that you could have it off to one side or down the back of something, depending upon exactly how you're displaying it. But a lot of those are just sort of little tiny nitpicks. The main one is just having those white wires when most of this the colors are all dark. But overall impressions of how the light kit is, I think it's a fantastic addition, and it really does add a new dimension to it, because if you have it in the dark like that and then want to turn the light on, you can then see what a contrast and what a difference that is. This, you're seeing more of the actual model and how it's constructed and built, but then when you turn the light off, it's going much more for the atmosphere, particularly in this Dagobah scene where it was quite confined and constricted with all the darkness and everything like that. I think this really works in its favor. The only downside, I guess, a little bit is that the characters themselves don't get much of a highlight. I guess it comes down to how you have them sitting in the set. I mean, when you put it directly under light, then that sort of works, but I guess that's the thing, considering the scene, it didn't really have a lot of natural light other than, you know, a couple of flames and that, and then what's coming off the X-Wing, you know, strictly speaking, having lights up in the trees down like that. I don't think that's how it was, but, you know, you give some flexibility, allow for those sorts of things. In terms of the actual experience with it, it's very much, you need to have patience with it, and for me, having the pair of tweezers really made a huge difference, so I would highly recommend that. I did this over a couple of sessions. All up, it's probably about an hour and a half by the time you take it all apart and everything. The only thing I didn't like was when we had to run these ones through the base, because when you're taking some of those supports off on the base, it felt like parts of this whole thing was starting to float and move around, and you're sort of putting it back together slowly one by one and then flipping it up and pushing it down, making sure it's all back and connected again. So it did feel like occasionally there's a few little harrowing moments where you're just doing it really, really softly just to make sure the whole thing doesn't shear apart. In terms of if it's worthwhile and something to get, I think if you're working on a night scene or you're going to have it displayed with the lights on with ambient background lights or something like that, then that can be quite good. Otherwise, you're probably just going to have it in the daylight most of the time, and then it's just a matter of, you know, how often will you actually just go around turning the battery boxes on to really display it when it's in all its glory like that.
Thanks very much for watching, and if you leave the word Jedi in the comments, we'll know you've watched this far. If you've enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing to the channel, and a share never goes astray. Here are some other lighting videos you might be interested in. Alternatively, here are some other videos you might also like to watch. That's it from us here at Family Bricks. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.